majestic city floating above the clouds, bathed in flickering lights. Sprawling towers of arcane design stretch toward the heavens, connected by bridges of shimmering energy. Below, the land is darkened by the sheer size of the city's shadow, a silent testament to the power and hubris of the Netherese. The Netherese Empire, a civilization of unparalleled magic, where wizards wielded the very fabric of reality like an artist shaping clay. Their cities soared above the earth, held aloft by mythalars, vast reservoirs of arcane energy capable of sustaining entire metropolises. The Netherese had mastered spells that could reshape mountains, halt aging, and defy the gods themselves. No kingdom rivaled their might, no nation challenged their supremacy, but all empires, no matter how great, are destined to fall. Among the scholars, the archmages, and the ambitious spellcasters who ruled the skies, one stood apart. His name was Emrys, a master of abjuration magic, a weaver of wards, and a scholar devoted to the study of the weave itself. While many of his peers sought raw power, Emrys had always been drawn to protection, resilience, and preservation, not of individuals, but of knowledge, of civilizations, of the very balance of magic itself. Emrys traces the lines of an ancient tome, wards of glowing silver flickering around his workspace. A map of Netherese cities is spread before him, magical annotations shifting across the page. He had helped construct Hlondath, one of the greatest of the floating cities, ensuring that its mythalar thrived, that its magical infrastructure remained stable, that its people never saw the slow decay that had begun to take hold elsewhere. He had walked alongside Karsus, studied the weave with him, built floating spires and arcane wonders with him. They had been friends, rivals, and kindred spirits, both seeking the perfection of magic, though their paths had diverged in how they sought it. Now, history remembers Netheril only in fragments. The empire is long gone, its ruins buried beneath the sands of a Nalrock, its records scattered and unreliable. Some say its end was inevitable, that its people flew too close to the sun. Others whisper that the elves of Cormantha, the aberrant Faerun, or even Karsus himself played a role in its destruction. The flickering pages of a modern-day tome fade into view, a scholar's hands turning its delicate pages. The words are uncertain, incomplete, legends half lost to time. But Emrys was there. He saw it all. And though time has erased much of what was, the echoes of that final day remain, preserved in his words, his memories, and the last records of a world that once reigned above the heavens. It opens before us on the sprawling majesty of Karsus's keep, a structure that defies nature itself. Suspended in the air above the endless clouds, the keep is an architectural marvel, a blend of stone and pure arcane force. Towering spires connected by glowing bridges pulse with raw magic, the air thick with the hum of energy. Arcane runes shimmer across the walls, shifting and reforming as if the very structure of the keep is alive with magic. Through the grand entrance, lined with statues of the greatest Netherese archmages, Emrys strides forward. The halls are filled with floating tomes, enchanted quills writing on parchment mid-air, and magical constructs gliding effortlessly to assist scholars. The deeper he moves, the more the arcane energy intensifies, revealing just how much magic pulses through Karsus's domain. Emrys enters a vast chamber, the ceiling an illusion of the cosmic void, stars shifting slowly as if watching. At the center of the room, a mythalar hums, its crystalline surface glowing with an ethereal light. Before it stands Karsus, his robes flowing unnaturally, animated by unseen forces. His eyes burn with ambition, his hands outstretched as he manipulates the weave around the artifact. Karsus turns, his expression one of calm and power. I knew you would come, Emrys. You always do. Emrys steps forward, sensing the weight of something momentous about to unfold. You summoned me, Karsus. And when you summon, it is never without purpose. Karsus turns, a confident smile gracing his lips, yet his eyes betray an underlying fervor, an obsession. We are on the precipice of history. You and I, we have spent our lives shaping the future of Netheril, crafting cities that float beyond the reach of mortality. And yet, our enemies gather in the dark. The Faerun conspire, the gods toy with our fate. I have spoken with Arthendal, and his warnings are dire. The end of our age is closer than we think. Emrys listens intently, his brows furrowing at the mention of the Faerun, the ancient aberrant foes of Netheril who drain magic from the world. And so, you seek to wield a power beyond all others. What is it you plan, Karsus? Karsus steps aside, revealing a pedestal upon which rests a gleaming artifact, a crown wrought from an unknown metal, thrumming with power. Arcane sigils carve themselves into its surface, shifting like liquid light. This, my friend, is the pinnacle of all our studies. A spell unlike any other, one that will reshape our very existence. I have toiled for years, refining it, perfecting it. I call it Karsus Avatar. Emrys steps closer, a hesitant awe in his expression. The crown radiates power beyond comprehension, and he feels the weave bending unnaturally around it. A spell? To do what, exactly? Karsus's expression intensifies, revealing a state of conviction above all else. To take the power of Netheril herself. To unshackle magic from the whims of the divine. We will no longer be subject to the chaos of the gods. With her power, I will ensure that Netheril endures forever. Emrys recoils slightly, his mind racing. This was beyond mere ambition. This was godhood. Karsus, have you considered what this means? You are speaking of wielding divine essence. Even if the spell succeeds, what will happen to Netheril? What will happen to the weave? Karsus waves a hand dismissively, his confidence unwavering. It will stabilize Emrys. I have calculated every possibility. The weave will bend to my will, and our people will be saved. Emrys looks into his friend's eyes, searching for any hesitation, any trace of doubt. He finds none. And if you are wrong, if the weave cannot sustain such a change? Karsus's expression darkens slightly, but the fervor remains. That is why I need you, Emrys. If something were to go awry, I trust you to document what happens, to ensure our legacy endures. You are one of the few I would entrust with such a responsibility. Emrys clenches his fists. He knows he cannot dissuade Karsus. Not now. The path is set, and the moment of reckoning approaches. He nods, reluctantly. Very well, but I do hope you have truly accounted for all possibilities, my friend. Karsus smiles, placing a reassuring hand on Emrys's shoulder. Trust in me, Emrys. Trust in the vision we have built together. The two friends stand before the Mythila, one resolute in his ambition, the other burdened by foreboding doubts. As Emrys steps through the shimmering teleportation circle, the world around him shifts. The air hums with residual magic as the arcane gateway closes behind him, leaving him standing in the heart of Hlondath, his beloved city. Unlike the cold, academic grandeur of Karsus Keep, Hlondath is a beacon of civilization, a floating jewel of culture, commerce, and arcane refinement. The streets are paved with smooth, enchanted obsidian that absorbs and redistributes light, creating a soft luminescence underfoot. Towering marble structures adorned with shifting runes stretch toward the sky, their forms bending impossibly as if sculpted by the weave itself. The city's Netheril, a colossal crystal housed within an ornate chamber at the city's core, radiates its stabilizing energy, ensuring that Hlondath remains aloft above the world below. Emrys pauses for a moment, taking in the sights and sounds around him. Marketplaces buzz with life. Floating stalls drift lazily above the streets, displaying wares of immense craftsmanship. Enchanted textiles shimmer in hues that change with the time of day. Artisans manipulate raw magic to weave tapestries that shift between depictions of historical events, and alchemists demonstrate potions that temporarily alter the nature of one's very being. A group of scholars levitate by, engaged in an animated discussion about planar anomalies, their voices weaving seamlessly between thought and speech through telepathic links. A few construct servitors march past, their intricately designed bodies moving with uncanny grace, tasked with maintaining the city's endless wonders. Despite all this, Emrys moves with a measured pace, his mind still occupied by his conversation with Karsus. He had long known of his friend's ambition, but never before had it seemed so utterly boundless. To reach beyond mortality and seize divinity itself, such a thing should have been impossible, and yet Karsus believed otherwise. That certainty was what unsettled Emrys most of all. Emrys makes his way toward his personal quarters, a modest yet well-appointed estate nestled among the upper tiers of Hlondath, where the scholars and arcanists reside. As the city's trademaster, one of his primary roles is ensuring the smooth operation of commerce between the great enclaves of Netheril. Unlike Karsus, who delved into raw magical theory, Emrys's work was more practical, ensuring the economy of the floating cities remained stable, keeping the flow of vital goods uninterrupted. Entering his study, he glides his hand over a crystalline console embedded in the wall, activating an array of shimmering reports and inventory lists suspended in the air. He scans the incoming shipments, high-quality furniture from Hlondath, a fresh supply of alchemical components, and a new stock of quasi-magical trinkets, minor enchanted items designed to make daily life easier, from self-cleaning plates to quills that never run out of ink. Emrys scribes a few notes with a floating quill, adjusting allocations to ensure no district suffers shortages. Though Netherese cities were magnificent, they were also precarious, dependent on trade and the balance of arcane energy. A single miscalculation, a single disruption to their enchantments could mean disaster. That fear had always been there, lingering at the edges of his mind like a shadow. And now, with Karsus's plan in motion, that shadow loomed larger than ever. After completing his trade assessments, Emrys turns to a more personal task. Over the next 2 days, he prepares extensive notes, scribing detailed accounts of his interactions with Karsus into multiple scrolls. He records everything: the conversations, the theories, the anxieties buried beneath his friend's bravado. This is not for public record, not yet. This is for history. With careful precision, he places his words into an echo stone, a small, intricately cut gem that retains spoken words and thoughts. As he channels his memories into the stone, his voice echoes softly within the chamber. Karsus is the greatest wizard I have ever known, and yet I fear his brilliance will be his undoing. He speaks of ascension as though it is inevitable, as though the weave itself will simply bend to his will. But magic has never worked so simply. The gods do not yield power without consequence. And yet, I hesitate to condemn him. He seeks to save us, to shield Netheril from forces that would see us undone. And is that not what we all desire? Even now I wonder, if I had the power to preserve our people forever, would I not take it? Would I not reach for the divine? The words linger in the echo stone, a snapshot of his fears immortalized in arcane resonance. He seals the stone away, placing it within a protective vault in his study. If nothing else, he will ensure that when the histories are written, the truth of these days will not be lost. The next day, Emrys is summoned to a gathering of master arcanists. A new project is underway, an effort to reshape a mountain north of Hlondath, part of a grand expansion initiative. The task is monumental, requiring the combined efforts of several powerful mages. Standing at the edge of the floating city, Emrys watches as the other wizards channel their magic, sending ribbons of force through the air. The mountain below trembles as its very shape is rewritten, immense chunks of stone peeling away like parchment. With practiced skill, Emrys joins them, weaving his magic into the spell. The peak of the mountain is lifted, inverted, and carefully settled into place. An impossible feat of magic, one that would serve as the foundation for a future enclave. For a moment, he is lost in the wonder of it all. The sheer power at their fingertips, the ability to mold the world itself to their will. It is breathtaking, and yet, as he gazes across the horizon, his mind drifts back to Karsus. Would even this magic pale in comparison to what he was about to attempt? As the sun sets, Emrys returns to his estate, weary from the day's work. He stands upon his balcony, gazing out over Hlondath, the city shimmering in the twilight. Far below, the world of lesser men sprawls endlessly, the kingdoms of those who could only dream of Netherese grandeur. In the quiet, he reflects on the nature of power, the myth of permanence, the idea that even Netheril, for all its might, is invincible. He has always believed in the Emperor's greatness, but tonight, for the first time, doubt gnaws at him. If Karsus is wrong, what then? He turns from the view and steps inside. His estate, though modest by Netherese standards, is comfortable. His chambers are lined with tomes of history and arcane theory. A faint glow emanates from a small shrine to Mistral, one of the few in the city. While many Netherese scoff at the gods, Emrys has always believed that magic itself is worth reverence. The city of Hlondath slumbers, its vast spires illuminated by the soft glow of the Mithalar. Magic hums gently in the air, the lifeblood of the Netherese Empire flowing unseen through its enchanted streets. Above, the sky is a tapestry of stars, undisturbed by the worries of mortals. To an outsider, all would seem peaceful, eternal even. But for Emrys, sleep does not come easily tonight. He lies awake in his chambers, staring at the intricately carved ceiling of his modest estate. His mind is restless, consumed by the weight of his last conversation with Karsus. The words echo in his thoughts. Trust me, Emrys. This is our only way forward. Had it been desperation in Karsus's voice, or something more dangerous, conviction unchecked by reason? Emrys exhales slowly and turns onto his side. The night is quiet, save for the faint sound of the wind whispering through the enchanted lattice windows. He closes his eyes, attempting to push the worries from his mind. Sleep finally begins to take him, until something stirs. A faint sound, gentle at first, like the soft lapping of water against stone. Emrys's brow furrows in half-conscious confusion. He turns, blinking at the darkened room. The sound persists. It is coming from the wash basin, across the chamber. Emrys sits up, his heart quickening. The water in the basin ripples, though there is no breeze. The ripples deepen, spiraling inward. The surface becomes impossibly dark, as though reflecting a night sky far older than the one above. A presence fills the room, unseen yet undeniable. He feels it before he hears it, a whisper, ancient and vast. Emrys, awaken. The moment her voice touches his mind, the world around him halts. The air stills, the soft hum of the city ceases. Time itself holds its breath. His pulse quickens. He knows that voice, or at least he thinks he does. He has studied her, revered her. Mistral, the goddess of magic, the very essence of the weave. Yet never before has he felt her so present. He rises, slowly approaching the basin. The water within no longer reflects his face, but something else, an endless expanse of stars, woven with strands of raw arcane power. A shape coalesces within the depths, luminous and shifting, as though made of magic itself. The presence of Mistral is overwhelming, like staring into the heart of creation. Emrys responds, hesitant, in almost a whisper. Mistral. A soft, powerful voice moves between the tendrils of his mind. Time is short. Listen, and listen well, Emrys of Hlondath. Even now, your friend Karsus performs the spell that will destroy all you know. Emrys's breath catches. Karsus's spell, his ambition, his certainty. He had feared it, but now, confirmation, spoken from divinity itself. But he said it would protect us. He seeks only to preserve Netheril, to stop the Faerun before. He is blind to the truth. His spell is folly. He seeks not preservation, but dominion. And for that, he will steal from me that which must never be taken. A pulse of energy ripples outward from the basin, filling the room with dazzling light. Within the basin, Emrys sees flashes of something. Karsus, standing atop his floating citadel, arms outstretched, a crown of impossibly intricate design upon his brow. His voice, whispering incantations of impossible complexity, the weave itself shuddering, twisting in protest. Then, a fracture. The world buckles. Magic, the lifeblood of their civilization, begins to unravel. Emrys stumbles back, his breath shallow. His greatest fear has been realized. Karsus's ambition, his unshakable belief in his own brilliance. It has doomed them all. Emrys screams within his mind, in a desperation he has never experienced. Stop him. You must stop him. A strong but sudden response. I cannot. A pause. The weight of that statement crushes the air from his lungs. Mistral responds softly, yet filled with sorrow. I have but moments left, Emrys. The weave is already fracturing. I am already fading. Emrys staggers, his mind reeling. The Netherese Empire, its floating cities, its wonders, its very foundation, all of it is bound to the weave. If Mistral is fading, then everything they have built is seconds from collapse. Then this is the end. Mistral's voice echoes in his mind gently, yet with urgency. Not for all. There is still time, but only a little. Another pulse of magic surges through the room. Emrys gasps as his body is suddenly flooded with arcane energy. Not wild, not overwhelming, but precise, controlled. Mistral is giving him a fragment of herself, one final gift. Take what remains of my power, Emrys. Go to the Mythalar. You and the others must channel this magic. You must guide Hlondath down, lest it share the fate of the others. He understands now. The floating cities, without the weave to sustain them, they will plummet. Thousands, perhaps millions, will perish as their splendor shatters upon the earth. But if they act quickly, if they wield this divine spark, they may yet save Hlondath. Then he hears her once more. There is one more thing. Emrys steadies himself, blinking away the arcane light burning in his veins. I will not return as I am now. My essence must be reborn. But not all of me. I will divide myself for the sake of balance, and a portion, just a fragment, will be set apart, beyond the reach of gods and mortals alike. A flickering image, a wisp of blue light, drifting endlessly through the void, untouched by time. They will call it the Will-O-Wisp Queen, a shadow of memory, a whisper of what once was. You must ensure that knowledge of me endures, Emrys, for one day it may be needed again. Emrys places a hand against the basin's edge, steadying himself. This is too much, and yet there is no time for doubt. Mistral with a soft and final plea, do not let me be forgotten. The connection fades, the swirling water stills, the silence is deafening. Emrys stands frozen for a single moment, the weight of Mistral's words settling upon him like a funeral shroud. Then, he moves. He grabs his staff and he throws open his door. He runs through the glowing streets of Hlondath, past the floating markets, past the towers of scholars, toward the heart of the city, toward the Mythalar, toward what little time remains. The world is already falling, and he has only moments to save what he can. The streets of Hlondath glow under the ever-present light of the Mythalar, its ethereal radiance pulsing faintly in the night. The floating city hums with life, unaware that the world they know is about to end. The room erupts into motion. Two of his fellow wizards are in the room, moving with purpose. Hlondath, one of the wizards, grabs an enchanted orb from his satchel, whispering a message spell into it, sending warnings to every wizard who might help. Colette, another wizard, rushes to a side chamber, rousing more mages from their arcane studies. Emrys strides forward, placing his hands upon the Mythala. He feels it instantly. The arcane engine hums with pure magical energy, but something is wrong. The weave is already destabilizing. The connection that holds the floating city aloft is fraying. Within minutes, dozens of wizards arrive, faces pale, eyes sharp with understanding. Emrys stands at the Mythalar, his voice steady despite the chaos swelling in his chest. Emrys shouts with commanding authority, "Listen to me! The weave is failing. We must bring Hlondath down, or we will be nothing but ruins scattered across the plains." A murmur of disbelief, then realization, then grim determination. They begin. Around the chamber, wizards raise their hands, arcane sigils glowing in the air. The Mythala pulses, its radiant core shifting. A deep vibration rumbles through the city. Outside, the people of Hlondath feel it. A sudden lurch, the ground beneath them trembling as the floating metropolis begins its slow descent. Fear spreads like wildfire. Citizens spill into the streets, looking to the sky, confused, terrified. Emrys keeps his focus on the Mythala, hands trembling from the power he is channeling. The magic is sluggish, the once effortless currents of the weave now jagged and unpredictable. Mistral's power is failing. They are running out of time. Then, a sound like the tearing of the heavens. The wizards stagger as the air shudders around them. Outside, the sky, a once tranquil abyss of stars, fractures with an unnatural glow. And far above, in the distance, "Emrys? What in the nine hells?" Emrys replies with an urgent and breathless authority. "No time. Go gather all mages. Now. The Mythalar." He gestures wildly to the glowing core. "We must descend the city. Immediately." The two exchange looks. Confusion. Hesitation. To descend a Netherese city is unthinkable. No city of Netheril has ever willingly abandoned the skies that I know of. Colette, another wizard, still confused. "Slow down. What are you talking about? What's happened?" Emrys grips the edge of the central platform, forcing himself to speak clearly. "Karsus, he's done it. He's casting the spell. He is trying to take Mistral's power." A terrible silence. And then, Hlondath whispering in horror. "Gods." Towering metropolises, the pride of Netheril, plunge from the heavens like burning stars. Emrys can see them. 4, 5, 6 cities at once, breaking apart mid-air, their structures torn asunder by the violent collapse of their magic. The ground erupts in the distance as the first city strikes the earth. an explosion of dust, flame, and magic. The shockwave ripples outward, flattening forests, cracking mountains. Then another city crashes down, then another. Each impact is a calamity, a wound upon the world itself. Hlondath trembles as the Mythalar strains against the chaos. Emrys watches the destruction with horror. Then he realizes the shockwaves, the sheer force of impact from the other cities, will annihilate Hlondath before it can safely land. Emrys then shouts with urgency, "We need a shield, a barrier, anything to absorb the impact." Kalathi and Kaleti nod in grim unison, stepping forward. The assembled wizards gather every ounce of their power, hands outstretched. A golden arcane sigil forms above them, massive, stretching outward beyond the walls of the city. A barrier, a final, desperate protection. The Mythala flares, its glow turning blindingly bright as it absorbs and amplifies the spell. The shield extends outward, covering Hlondath like a dome. Seconds later, the next city falls. The explosion is deafening. A storm of fire and rubble races outward. It reaches Hlondath's barrier and stops. The shield holds. Emrys collapses to his knees, exhausted, hands still trembling with divine magic. The barrier flickers, but it does not fail. Hours pass. The world burns, but Hlondath survives. When the last city has fallen, the world grows eerily quiet. The once great empire of Netheril is gone, reduced to smouldering craters, lost history, and fading echoes of power. Magic itself feels lesser. Hlondath is no longer a city of the sky. It rests upon the earth, a survivor in a world forever changed. The people emerge from their homes, looking upon the ruined land with haunted expressions. Their gods have abandoned them. Their empire is dust, and yet they are alive. Emrys stands upon the outer walls, gazing at the horizon. The last remnants of divine magic flicker away in his hands. Mistral is gone. Karsus, his greatest friend, has doomed them all. Was this truly the only way? Months pass, and the sun rises over a land forever changed. The once mighty empire of Netheril is now nothing but scattered survivors and ruined cities buried beneath the earth. Hlondath, once a city of the skies, is now a fledgling settlement in a world where magic has diminished, where old certainties have crumbled. The city, now on the ground in what will one day be called the Shining South, is struggling to adapt. Its Mythalar is inert, its power dissipated with Mistral's death. The once thriving arcane infrastructure, floating streets, ever-burning lamps, self-repairing structures, has begun to fail. Wizards now find even the simplest spells require more effort. The weave, now sluggish and unfamiliar. And yet, life goes on. The people gather in makeshift halls of governance, forming a fragile new order from the wreckage of the old world. And at the center of it all, Emrys stands, caught between his duty to history and the burden of his grief. The grand hall of Hlondath is filled with voices, angry, desperate, accusatory. The city's remaining archmages, scholars and leaders have gathered to determine their future, and in doing so, they must first assign blame. At the head of the chamber sits Raumark, once an archmage of Netheril, now ruler of a city struggling to redefine itself. His robes are no longer embroidered with arcane sigils. Now they are practical, suited for a world where power must be measured more carefully. Raumark speaks grimly to the assembled wizards. We must face the truth. We were not defeated by an external enemy, nor by the Faerun alone. We destroyed ourselves. A murmur spreads through the chamber, some in agreement, others in protest. The name Karsus lingers on their lips, like a curse, like a wound that has yet to heal. Emrys stands among them. He has kept mostly silent during these gatherings, observing, listening. But today, he speaks. Karsus did what he thought was necessary. He saw our end coming long before the rest of us did. Can we truly say he was wrong to seek salvation? A sharp silence follows. Some nod in solemn understanding. Others glare with anger. Salvation? He killed Mistral. He destroyed the weave itself. He doomed us all. If not for him, we would still be in the sky. Emrys raises his voice, proudly, but with a weight of guilt on his mind. If not for him, we might already be dead. He saw what the Faerun were doing. He saw the slow death of our cities, our magic. If we had done nothing, Netheril would have crumbled regardless. The chamber erupts again, arguments breaking out on all sides. Some see Karsus as a tragic hero, others as a reckless fool. And in the midst of it all, Emrys feels a hollow ache in his chest. Because he knows, whatever else Karsus was, he was also his friend. And that friendship is something no debate can erase. Later that evening, Emrys sits in his modest home, a far cry from the grand towers he once knew. The only light in the room comes from a small enchanted basin of water, once used for simple divinations and cleansing rituals. As he leans forward to wash his face, something strange happens. The water shimmers, the surface rippled by an unseen force. A faint blue light emerges, flickering like a dying candle. Then a voice. "I have been watching you, Emrys." He freezes. The voice is unlike any spell, unlike any vision he has known before. It is faint, an echo, yet somehow, unmistakably, it belongs to Mistral. The light takes shape, coalescing into a small, floating wisp of energy, a remnant of something lost, a fragment of Mistral's mind, left behind before her destruction. "I do not have long, but I needed to see you before I fade completely." Emrys swallows hard, his throat tight with emotion. He has dedicated his life to magic, to understanding the weave, and now, standing before him, is a piece of the very goddess who once wove reality itself. Why? Why me? The wisp drifts closer, its glow pulsing faintly. Because you remember, because you still carry my name in your heart. Silence. Then tell me, do you regret what happened? Do you regret Karsus? Do you regret us? The wisp flickers. For a moment, Emrys wonders if she will vanish without an answer. But then, the wisp with sorrow and regret. "I regret that I could not save you all. I regret that I could not save him." Emrys exhales, his chest heavy. Even now, even after everything, Karsus is still not forgotten. The wisp with a sense of hope. "I do not have time to mend the past, but the future, there is still more to uncover." The wisp floats upward, its glow intensifying for a brief moment. "You must go to the Anarok desert. You must seek Hlondath." Emrys's breath catches. Hlondath, one of the last great flying cities of Netheril. It had vanished before the fall. Its fate, unknown. Could it still exist? Could its secrets still remain? "Go, Emrys, and when you find the truth, tell my story. Tell our story." The light fades, the water in the basin going still once more. Emrys is left alone in the dim room, his mind racing, his heart heavy. He stands, gathering his scrolls and supplies. A journey awaits. Emrys stands at the edge of the ruined city, the cold night air brushing against his skin. The stars above are distant and indifferent, shining down upon a world forever changed. The once mighty Netheril is now dust, its power a whisper of memory carried on the wind. He clutches his staff, staring out toward the vast horizon. His mind is restless, his heart heavy with the weight of history. What is power, if not a fleeting illusion? What is wisdom, if not the realization that we are never as in control as we believe? Karsus had been the greatest wizard of their time, a man who commanded the weave itself, who dared to reach beyond the limits of mortals. And yet, for all his brilliance, he had fallen. And in that fall, he had taken an empire with him. Emrys then softly to himself. Even the brightest minds can be blinded by their own ambition. Even the most noble of intentions can lead to ruin. And yet, Emrys cannot bring himself to hate Karsus. He was not a villain, nor a monster. He was a man, a friend, a dreamer. And perhaps that is the most painful part of all. He turns away from the ruins of Hlondath and begins walking, his footsteps quiet against the stone. The wisp's final words still echo in his mind. Go to the Anorok, seek Hlondath. A call to unravel the last secrets of their lost civilization. But as he walks, one thought lingers above all others. Perhaps the greatest tragedy of Netheril is not that we fell, but that we refuse to believe we ever could.